That's what I said. Sure, thanks. Welcome, everyone. Today is Monday, June 9th, 2025. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Saratoga Springs Public Library Board of Trustees. Item on the agenda is the approval of our May regular meeting minutes. Does anyone have any changes, questions, anything about the minutes? If not, would someone like to make a motion to approve them? So, Heather, and a second. Nancy, all in favor? Next is the approval of the expenditures. The prepaid checks 73505 to 73507, totaling $3,077.02. And the June warrants checks 73508 to 73530 and 73608 to 73671, totaling $153,483.73. Any questions on those?
That should also include
The supplementals? Okay, and included also on those is supplemental check 73531 to 73533, totaling $526.61. Okay, would someone like to second that motion? Thanks, Jean. All in favor?
Aye.
Approving the financial reports, the prepaid checks, the June warrants by vendor, the June warrants by check number, which are both in our packet, the supplemental warrants checks that were just approved as expenditures, the budget report, and the income report. I had a question about the income report. Do you have that up? Can you go to the next one? Oh, no, that's right, Don. In May, it shows the Board of Education taxes number. Is it typical to get kind of a double, almost a double this time of year? Or why is that number so different than usual?
I think it's a change in the way they used to send us a check and now they do an electronic transfer, and so that is double. That's both the May and the June pay.
Okay.
So next month that number will stay at 0.
Right.
So
Okay.
they sent us the May payment like on May 2nd, and then the June payment on May 30th. And we just have to keep up with the same.
Okay, that's fine.
It's the miscellaneous 37.
The land.
Oh,
Anything else that anyone has a question about the income or the budget?
I have. Or the electric car. Are we, the cycle falls? So that means to move things around in order to have it be above 0, if it's too high. So I see the day bill was more than what's left in there.
You know, I honestly, I don't have an answer for that about whether, again, that may might include 2 of those, but
That's what I wondered,
But,
because sometimes that's.
But I think as long as we, when we get to next month's meeting, we need to reallocate, as long as we approve the reallocation before.
Okay, and it does say that that's July through May, which is a total of 105,000, and yeah, we budgeted 110. So that's, I guess,
Right.
how slow is, yeah.
But we are moving into a higher electricity with the air conditioning.
Right.
Electricity.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure if that was something that had to be adjusted before the next meeting.
I don't think so. We could just, I mean, just as long as it's adjusted before. we approve.
So we won't know though how much or anything we're moving, so I guess if it makes sense, I would just leave it and just make sure it goes earlier, which is what you usually do for reallocations anyway,
Yes.
right? So that Eric would be able to indicate, because when we approve a reallocation, we have to say where it's coming from, right, and how much exactly. Is that okay? Does that make sense to do that? All right.
As long as it makes sense to all of them.
Yes, yes, yeah, okay. Is anybody have anything else in there that they noticed that they're wondering about? Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to approve financial reports, including the prepaid checks and reported draft and warrant summary sheets, the budget report, and the income report?
I'll move that we approve the financial report.
Second? Thanks, Heather. All in favor? My report, I wanted to just share that all the final closing documents for the land sale next door have been received and are now here and on file. And the other things that I've been working on will come up in other parts of our agenda as the evening progresses. Public comment, I haven't received anything, have you? Correspondence, I did receive a request for information about the process to potentially support the board and join the board. And so I shared information with that person about that, and also information about the Friends Board and their volunteer options, which I also shared. So they, and then I didn't hear back. Did you hear
I got
anything?
it, I got it, thanks for it.
Okay, okay. You are up.
So building improvements, if you had a chance to walk around, you might notice some rearrangement, particularly on the first floor of some seating changes. We're trying to get more seating. We're working on moving computers down to this floor and the preparation for the elevator project. And also for the winding down of the operation, at least temporarily, of the coffee shop. Well, that space for programming on the elevators. We have reached a little bit of an arrangement where some coffee service will continue while the coffee shop is closed. We've put a table outside of the bookshop and we put some tables there, moved newspapers from the second floor down to the first floor. And they are going to leave the coffee making equipment in the coffee shop. Get in there before the library opens, make several AirPods of coffee, put them out on that table and accept donations.
Okay.
So they'll be able to continue that for. That is one thing that has shown up kind of anonymously, so it's hard to know whether it's a concerted effort, but in the suggestion box is full of save the coffee shop suggestions, which there were before, but it closed before that. One thing we don't have yet, and I've reached out to the building department, is any more news about the building permit.
Do they have a place that they give you a general update, or you just call and they say we have nothing to kind of share?
They seem to be in contact with the contractor, and there's a kind of an automated system, so we've got emails that it's been accepted and put in the queue, and we'll get some more information when it's in the queue. But what I heard from them when I personally delivered the application was that we wouldn't be put in the queue. So I don't know where things. So there does seem to be this automated system that goes to the contractor when the contractor gets it. Shared. We have heard from the contractor that the elevator is being manufactured, and then from that end of things, everything is going according to the original timeline. So hopefully those two things, the building permit and the elevator, arrive the way it needs to.
I guess let us know if you want, me to also reach out or something.
I've reached out to the contractors and to the architects, both along with, they may have more inside information since this is the first time that we've ever had to go to the city for a building.
Because I did just talk to a neighbor, and it's, they are at 3 or 4 months already, still waiting. So if we're in that queue, who knows? Okay.
The spring staff day was a little bit traumatic for people, but I think it was very useful information. We had a presentation from the police about active assailant training, and what to do in the event that there's an active shooter or some other kind of bad person. The advice has changed a little bit from when we first started doing this. It used to be run, hide, fight. Those were the things that you were supposed to do. Now does anybody remember what the acronym is? It's avoid. What's that?
Avoid, deny, defend. Avoid, deny, defend.
Avoid, deny, defend.
What's not defense?
Defend.
So get out if you can is similar to the old run. Deny is if you can and you have an opportunity, you actually engage with the person,
That's deny?
Deny them entry.
Deny entry.
Deny them the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes, so if you have an opportunity to tackle them, tackle them. Okay.
And that would be defend,
That would be
not,
defend.
deny would be instead of avoid, it would be like barricade or room, get far away. Yeah, deny them access to it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's hope that
It was, I
we
mean, they
don't
had
ever
proof.
have to actually,
No, but it's the word deny.
Yeah,
That's
right,
what it's-
Deny.
it's careful because then they can put add. Right, avoid, deny, defend, add.
I mean, it was very, and I think the training was actually more impactful this time, even though we can't remember what the acronym stands for. Because they had a lot more real life examples of people going through this, which was also traumatizing. But they showed interviews with people from the Sandy Hook Elementary School, from Virginia Tech University, from like real life survivors of these events. So we were very grateful when that was over to have.
Yeah, good planning to have puppies after that.
And we did tours of the various floors of the building, focusing on the safety features. Which doors lock with a key card, which doors need a key, where's a good place to hide, which doors have no doors, where are the fire alarms, where are the emergency exits. Sal's annual meeting, many of you were there, so thank you for coming. Congratulations on coming for election to the board of trustees.
Congratulations.
And we're very proud of Mary and Emily. It's still going on. I don't know if you've noticed at the bottom of the ramp now during high season. So, a big event. There is a portable naloxone distribution box, which looks like a paper box that the county comes and fills with Narcan doses and so for things like Chowder Fest for Belmont Festival. So it can come and go.
Right, do they make an announcement somewhere that it is there?
They've done it on their social media, and actually I was out there last week during the Belmont Festival when they were refilling it, so people are finding it.
Okay.
And taking I got to be the pronouncer of the spelling bee, which is fun.
Yeah.
So it's fun. And I added a picture of my report of one that makes me look less like a drug
So you kind of all there's a little, they just took the not quite at the right time. Every worker always has a smile, she's not even smiling.
That's grim.
Yes, in the saddle picture, and then in the picture from the spelling, yeah, about this kind of scowl.
I would like to point out my face is paralyzed.
We're just not supposed to look too closely at any pictures of ourselves. Great, does anyone have questions for Ike about anything in his report? Okay. Jen?
Got any questions? Want to join our team for the Firecracker 4? Run your colors.
Did you run in the CDP? You did, the CDP.
We walked.
Oh, you walked?
Yes, we walked. It was fun.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yes. Yeah, we had a whole group of people and then they just kept dropping off due to various reasons,
Nice.
but we had a good time. And then I've already mentioned the staff day and then the strategic plan will be talked about. Yep. In these sections.
So why don't we, any questions for Jen about that, we'll save it for, later in the agenda when that's coming up. Any questions for Jen before we move on? Don, I mean, that is a pretty snazzy weather station right there.
I am so excited about that.
And I even looked it up because of how horrible the air, I mean, I can feel it in my chest, the air quality these days, and so I was kind of checking it out.
If you look up when you're in the parking lot, you can actually see it there.
Nice.
It's kind of on hold up all winter because want to shovel, like Rick didn't want to shovel. Got a piece of the mat we were waiting for to put under it, so it didn't make a dent in the rubber roof. So
Right.
that's why it's up there now. It's all official and just in time for fire season. We'll probably, that's our staff page display for the weather. We'll probably have something full page for public on the page, and likely we'll just link to it or do something, a little bug that links to the full page so that everybody can read about the weather station and pick up data if they'd like. So
Nice.
can't take a little credit, but AI wrote most of that, or did it.
It wasn't you who came up with Voodoo?
No.
I appreciate that explanation.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you were self-medicating.
No, they did.
I started, I had all the content, and I just said spice it up. It went for it.
Spicy message.
Are you miss reading papers that your students that they could actually put in things like make it cheeky?
I'm very glad. I retired before AI.
Yeah, before you have to be even evaluating if someone has used it or not. Okay, any questions for Don? Right, Trevor. And unfortunately, the article in the paper about the parking was totally inaccurate.
Yeah.
About, it was in the Saratogian, it was the thing, one I think I read that indicated that patrons could only park Monday through Friday.
Really?
Did people come in even more confused after that, or no?
It's funny, it seems like the tenor around the conversations you've been having with patrons at the circulation desk is changed a little bit, regardless of what the different, articles that said that, you purchasing parking permits at the library, which they're not for sale, there's no purchase, and, a variety of the information. So instead of the kind of the confusion, and the anxiety and the anger that a few people, expressed. I mean, now it's people, it feels like people kind of get it. It's also baked into our staff's, regular routine now. So people have been coming and saying, I saw an article in the paper and just wanted to make sure I had a parking, is it still good? Do I have to renew it? You're asking these really good, really good questions. And so, I know with the temporary closure of the Boston Spa Public Library, a number of their patrons have come here to use our services. And so, when that first began, there was a little bit of, patron education that took place, but really, I mean, these folks do want to find library services somewhere. It's a lot of people with little people with them, and yeah, they're finding other places to park. So, yeah, like I said, the type of conversation is shifted somewhat. So that's really good. I mean, it's been a year, and kind of like gearing up, and so far, so good.
Okay.
The city has also changed their parking stuff. I'm not sure if anyone saw that, but now if you're a resident of the school district, but not a city resident, you can pay a little bit and get a parking permit for all the other city lots. So I think they've tried to, I don't know how that's working out. I haven't heard before.
So if you
but
are a city resident, you can do that as well, or no?
well, if you're a city resident, you can park in the paid parking with a permit for free. But it didn't include school district residents, and I think that's where part of the confusion with this law
I see.
arose from, is that they were excluded from those lots, but not this lot. So now they can pay like by the month or a whole season pass.
I had a couple of very smart friends call me late at night, just like almost hysterical with what is this? And because the wording was so confusing about the school district and then the city.
Well,
It was
and
hard to-
even if they put it out accurately, then the press doesn't necessarily get the details
Right.
of what that is, so, yeah.
And they did not put it out accurately, so.
Right.
So what they put out, the press release that came from DPW had the mistakes that were repeated.
Okay. Did anybody contact DPW to get those things clarified so that they next year won't keep putting out the inaccurate information?
And he put it out in for, I feel badly for it a little bit, but he, because he put it out inaccurately multiple times, like he tried to correct it,
Oh,
make it worse.
I think there's.
yeah, it's, yeah.
And then there was all kinds of confusion. He's a very interesting communicator because it feels like you're not having the same conversation.
Right,
You'll ask him a question and you get like non sequiturs or things that,
yeah,
and so there was some confusion about library staff parking, library staff being eligible for downtown.
right, because they're not necessarily residents.
Right, which we are, but they somehow had us assigned library parking lot permits. And it was the exact same permit as it was last year, nothing had changed.
But they changed their system or something.
Yeah, they changed their system midstream, but it was the same permit that we gave staff last year, which turns out now to be only valid for this parking lot and not for the city parking lots. And there's a new city parking lot we had to assign,
Okay.
which we thought we had done because of this
Right.
funky communication. Till staff started getting tickets in the parking lot. But we got it straightened out.
Okay. Good, I'm glad we got it straightened out. Yeah. Too many thoughts going.
Well, and that's what he said. He always gets confused by us because we're the exception to all. city-
Yeah,
city
yeah.
parking.
All right, well, sorry, Trevor, I didn't even let you get to
No,
give any
no
updates.
apologize.
So whatever you thought to share, we'd love to hear.
No, just, I'm, every month I take a look at, what's happening in outreach as well, and I see, the type of work that, I just kind of wanted to point out what Sarah Garrett has been working on, as she's a, one person, senior outreach machine, and So just this month as an example, this is a pretty, I'm trying to say, a standard example of what she does in a month. And so she's done 22 group visits or programs. And so that includes the outreach she does with the writing groups at the memory care facilities, visited with 288 people and delivered 643 individual items from the library to her folks out there. And I know 643 is not a record. You know, she's broken 700 in the past, but you know, trying to look at this and I say, oh, that's great. And I think, oh, that's like one person doing this. So just I wanted to make mention of that.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
Jennifer's really getting the summer cranked up, and she's psyched that she's starting to see regulars at the Middle Grove Town Park, and so she feels like she's kind of starting to, you know, just the seeds of some community building is happening there. And I think Mary Ann Rockwell is starting to feel like, you know, she was really worried that, you know, that she wasn't making contact with them, and I think she shifted how she's communicating with students or how students are interacting with her. And so I think she's, you know, everyone seems to be starting to adapt a little bit to a fluid situation. So I'm really proud of her. So that's it. If anybody has any questions?
Any questions for Kelly?
Thank you.
Catherine?
Like a broken record, I was like, we're really busy. As you see.
Do you actually have that book that Laura is showing, the enormous book? That live at the library?
So we have two collections of large books, ones that you can borrow and ones that live in the storage center. We likely have two copies of them. But yes, you may borrow one, and they work on the self-check.
Wow. Any questions for Catherine about her? It's also exciting how much the teen programs, it was nice to see those statistics, like it's really expanded. Yeah, it's great.
That's got to be fixed.
It's gonna follow you. It's like you gotta embrace it. Jamie, you have anything you want to bring our attention to in your report?
Sorry.
You're so
I don't
like
have any-
mesmerized by this.
I don't have anything else to add to mine, but if you do scroll down just a little bit, you guys can see the box that I was talking about, that's outside during those big events with all the doses out there. And we also got tick removal kits.
I saw that.
And they
How
went like
many-
hotcakes, so
Yeah, that's like sad and fabulous that you have them.
we put them right with the all the gardening stuff.
Right.
See the library, they were gone in a minute.
Yeah.
Did you, so with the award, the Reach Recovery Award, so is that visible up there? Like, do patrons come in that are using those materials and see that you?
That, you know what, I don't know if we've put up that's a great idea, I don't think we've done that.
Yeah, I think
We will.
it's a lot, 'cause
Yeah.
it's so innovative.
Yeah. And if you scroll a tiny bit more, you'll see Rebecca had her baby, his name is Grant, he's really cute.
So,
Is that Liz Moore that wrote Out of the Woods? Is that?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's the, yeah, same one.
Okay.
okay, and Kelly, it looks like talk about your report and do the appointment requests that you have there. I'm really happy to see that you figured out a way to do the performance evaluations. I know you were back researching it
And
different
then
times.
trying to find something that would work a little bit more efficiently for everybody. We tried the paychecks thing and that wasn't that great, so try some things now. And it seems to be, I haven't shot it out to everybody yet. Catherine's been helping me, thank you. But I'm almost complete with the formatting side of things, so.
Good.
Hmm.
Does anyone have any questions for Kelly or? No? Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we approve Thaddeus Long as a shelver in youth services, part-time at $17.38 an hour, effective May 27th, 2025. Someone like to second? Thank you, Terry. All in favor? Okay, let's have a conversation about the strategic plan draft. It's done. So some edits have been shared. Jen has the document open if there's little things that anybody has seen. It's my understanding, Jean, that some of your suggestions you spoke with Ike about, and some exist, but maybe at different places around protecting the right to read and intellectual freedom. And was it then shared? Did you share each other that Jen has said that they're updating the through ALA, or
It's ALA Intellectual Freedom Manual
Right.
interpretations.
And so we thought it may make sense to get the new language that the ALA is using, and then have a resolution of our support of that and where those things could sit in a more connected place, I guess.
So just, I don't know if everybody knows, but and I apologize because I didn't plug in earlier. I was having computer problems, so I just couldn't read it. And I felt like, it's a great series of steps, but I feel like it's, based on the one that was written a long time ago. And I feel like today the challenges in front of the libraries are astonishing. I never thought we'd be the center of this defending the right to read and books being banned, and and so I felt like I wanted to appear with a stronger statement about the value of defending the right to read and protecting a safe space for people and protecting information. And I looked and I didn't really see the word books in this at all. And I was thinking, not that that's all we do, but and we talk about collections,
Right.
but do we talk about ensuring accurate, informed, scientific knowledge, so sort of a way to bring out some core values that are about defending right to read specifically.
So
And to me, that's right for information. And
right,
that's the
right,
basis
like,
for-
so I see it as accessibility, that we're protecting intellectual freedom and personal privacy while offering universal access to collections, services, events, and knowledge, both within and
a little tiny inserted statement that just says something about, protecting the right to read and making this a safe space for the exchange of knowledge and for information.
right. Jen, since you probably know it the best at this point in terms of the flow of it, just something, as much as we know that those documents exist, those policies exist, is there a place that you could imagine that we could have such a statement? Because the values, it isn't saying quite that in any of the values that I read. We know it sits within the mission and the vision, but it isn't outlined.
So on our previous ones, and correct me if I'm wrong, we always had like a director's introduction that is on the landing page of the website. I know Sal's does that as well, so
Right.
it could be come from board, come from like a.
Right, so I could draft, because you're right, there is no introduction to this. This is just essentially the plan, right? So in the previous iterations of the plan did have some kind of introduction. This
Right.
was our process. This is how we arrived at this is our plan. It was signed by me and sometimes by the board president at the same time. So I could work on drafting.
So why don't we do that? How do people feel about that? If Ike and I worked on something that then came, so that it's also in cooperation with the board and the staff.
Or it could even be signed by the whole committee.
Right, or the committee, you know, that there's something that's introducing and acknowledging, that's a climate right now and that we are committed. Does that make sense to people? To include something like that?
And you would use the word read.
Yes, we would use read
Somewhere.
yeah, in the introduction. What about you, thoughts?
For me, I have to see the language, it's a little vague.
Okay,
I mean, like,
do I have it here? I may have it, I don't know if I have the old.
Well, and I think a lot of it could come, we could just grab straight from Jean's email. From earlier.
Jean sent us some really great language, and I don't have in this folder with me what it said in the last one, but I bet that that's something
It's
also.
on our website. One of them.
And we could definitely,
it sounds like accessibility.
I meant literally on the website.
The right to
I don't know if that has
access
it, that might happen.
things,
Yeah, I mean, and
No.
the steps are
It's
all
on the
on
website.
there.
where would it be on the website?
On the bottom, it says strategic plan under be involved.
Yeah.
So up high,
Yeah,
no, you've already got
You
it.
scroll past it.
Keep going up there. So even the shell that I had when we were making it, I had like a blank slide that said director, board.
Right, and I remember
Introduction.
seeing that you were wondering about that. This doesn't quite say it that way either.
No. It's just
This
the
was-
idea
This was
of
the
it.
last plan.
So these are our options. We could, I could begin drafting that. I could offer some feedback too. And we could, get that into this plan and then just wait and approve the plan in July. We wanted it to begin in July, so it's fine to approve it in July and not approve it right now. Does that make sense to people? Are you comfortable with that? Nancy, is that okay?
Oh, that's.
Is there anything else beyond that anyone is wondering about or thinks needs clarification?
This is really good.
Okay,
It's a good job.
okay. All right, so let's do that. Let's just return to that in July. And we can try to work on that soon, so it doesn't wait till it goes in the packet, so that people can do that. So, the next item on the agenda is the camera placement, discussion. I know that we met with a member of the police department and someone, whose responsibility it is, to evaluate the cabling, is actually the company that does the cabling. And, the site that was chosen is on the building facing Lena's Lane in that alley, and it has a 180 kind of almost degree, right? Viewing so that it would capture things around the dumpster, things going around that corner. And so just to give you a couple of updates, and then I'll ask. So Dave, who is the president of Adirondack Cabling, had one of the technicians come. Don also could answer some of the questions about this. They would propose mounting it on that exterior wall, aligned with the cafe ceiling. So they would need to drill through the exterior wall. And they don't predict any issues with that. They've done that before in other locations. And then they would run a cable from the cafe up to the roof, because if you remember, all of their equipment already sits on the roof. It is a landing space really for the cameras that exist in Congress Park and things. So it's collecting all of that data. There are already chases in place that lead to the fan room on the roof. And some sleeves will need to go to the fan room that run down, that would, hide the cable. So, I wrote to Dave specifically to ask if there are any code related issues, because that was something, Don, in your response that there seems to be some curiosity about. And he said, no, there are no code issues that should raise any concern with doing this. He knows that the library maintenance team has a preferred silicone-based sealant for exterior applications. They're fine using that. They carry that already. And they will also install a fire-rated sleeve for the cable where it runs between the floors, so they're familiar with that piece. So that was one piece of information that you were all waiting for. The other thing that I've heard people had a question about was who has access to the camera footage, and specifically, does ICE have access to that footage? So I did write the lieutenant, and her response was that they do not have ability to access the camera systems. And she says, in partnership with law enforcement agencies, both local, state, and federal, there may be instances when we provide footage at their request to further an investigation. These requests do not always necessitate a warrant or a FOIL request, because I specifically asked that. But they typically request some form of written request explaining the reason for the footage required. And we also know that it's not saved indefinitely. They loop back onto old footage. So those were two things that I had heard from the board. I also spoke to Tony Izzo today, who is the city attorney, because he is who I was talking with last year about an MOU when we were going to do it in the parking lot. So I wanted to see if he had a draft of that for us to review if we were going to move forward with this request, and that he doesn't have that. That never got finished. So first I'd like to know if there's any particular questions that anyone has that those of us who met with Dave or with the lieutenant could answer. So let's begin there.
So the 108, so is it gonna get Bailey's, is it gonna get this end of the parking lot or something else gets that?
Yeah, it gets that corner.
Out to.
Not
out to the
necessarily
street.
out to the street, but there are cameras across the street that get like close to that Bailey's corner. You also should know that there was a request, I can share that, right?
Yes.
Last week for if we had footage, because there was a stabbing in the parking lot. that happened during the night that was something that came
From
spilled
across-
over from
yeah, from Putnam
Putnam Den,
Place.
or Putnam Place.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we didn't have that footage. So, those things are happening during the night that those of us who are not up during the night are not aware, and that's one of the reasons that they want some of these spaces to have some of that footage. Okay, any other questions about those pieces?
So there are actually two different sets of cameras out there.
There would be
There's
one.
the library security cameras. The library has its own, right?
The library has its own, we do not have anything that captures that space.
Right, no, I don't mean about
Yeah.
that space, I'm just thinking in terms of various authorities.
Yes, the various
Sure.
authorities in our, we had a question and had spoken to, had gotten legal counsel when we were reviewing our policies that we have around our cameras and the use on the exterior of the building, that, privacy is not expected or guaranteed on the outside of the building.
So in some cases, the police would be asking us for footage. In
Right.
some cases, we would be asking them for footage. Potentially.
That is correct, although we have never, in my experience, asked them for footage. But they've come to us, or when, last year when somebody else was stabbed in the parking lot, when somebody was jumped up here. And in those cases where they're investigating violent
And,
crimes.
at the moment, yeah.
We have cooperated with them. There have been other times when they've asked us, and we haven't been able to provide because it's been overwritten, or there's just no footage.
What it doesn't also tell you in terms of use of the library, it isn't, there isn't necessarily that someone who was over there and walking that way necessarily came into the library. Like there isn't necessarily the threads that connect. It isn't, that isn't the reason that they're trying to monitor.
And our exterior cameras don't really capture much beyond the entrance.
Right.
You know, the exception is the camera on the north end of the building that we installed because for a period of time, there was a lot of illicit activity. I mean, it was generally a retreat in addition to, there was lots of drug activity happening down there until we cut down a lot of shrubbery. They cooperated with us to help cut that down.
As far as our own cameras, we have a policy about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was something we evaluated last year, when there was we had some of those questions, and so we approved our policy. So I guess I would, the next, so one part then is whether or not we will, in a moment, I'll ask for a motion of whether to approve, the allowing the police to put this camera up. The next part, before I get to that, is then, if it's something we're considering doing, actually, let me do that first, and then I'll get to the MOU question. So I would like to make a motion to approve, allowing the police to, place a camera on the exterior of the building to monitor that, alleyway.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you for that.
Do you want to say the direction of the elevator? South.
It is facing south. It'll be on the south side of the building, giving access to the south, east and west, south, southeast and southwest. So for the MOU, the things that I had written down that I had discussed with the police last summer that I thought still were relevant were that we would have an expectation that the city is paying for the camera, doing the servicing of and monitoring the camera. Was there anything else that anyone can imagine that we would want included in that MOU?
That we would want some notice. before they came.
Yes, and I did have, actually, I had also told him that they would need to be working, and, you know, and working with maintenance for the installation of things.
So would that be advance notice for both installation and servicing?
Yeah. And I mean, I guess we would have to say in a reasonable time frame. I mean, I suppose there could be something that it's an emergency, that it's down and they need to get, I just don't know how fast they turn anything around like that.
You could put a number on it and say,
Yeah.
except in extraordinary circumstances or something like that.
Right.
3 days notice, except in extraordinary circumstances. Whatever you think is-
I think they come regularly to look to maintenance that device on the, not regularly, maybe yearly. And they just show up and say, is it a good time to get access to it?
And if it is, we kind of know, say, sure, come on. If it's not, we say, come back tomorrow.
Right, okay. So is there a way you want it phrased? Then we don't want a specific time frame on that, just when possible,
Or
or,
just a reasonable advance notice?
yeah,
Rick might have an official policy. Something like that.
okay.
Because it's usually his department, it's like, we're done.
Okay. So, the next issue with it is that obviously we don't have an MOU right now. And, it was my guess that they would want to try to move on it more quickly and install it than waiting a month for us to meet again to approve. So, is it possible to, have the board, or are you comfortable with giving me authority to work on the MOU between Mike and I?
Send it out, I mean, send it. We would look at it.
You would look at it, but you can't
Right,
vote on it. So I can get, I could definitely by email get, or get feedback, but I don't know how we do that.
I think you should be able to craft it. I think you should just tell them that it's gonna be subject to board approval.
But do we allow them to begin the installation process without it having been approved by?
I would trust your judgment with respect to what the MOU is. But
Right, okay. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's fine, because I don't think that they would have a reason not to want to enter into this.
He had a couple that he said are actually related to very similar things downtown that they already have on file, where with people with cameras on the building or the street light, you know, it was like the language seemed like it was gonna be very straightforward. And both the lieutenant that we were meeting with this spring and the lieutenant that I was interacting with last year were both not there today. So he didn't have a direct person to be able to get in touch with, but I know it didn't exist. He couldn't find it and he was the one who was working on it. So I think it just got dropped and then they didn't actually finish drafting it for us last year.
I don't think they started it actually.
Yeah, it's possible.
They sent us a sample of a different MOU.
Right. Okay, so would someone else, please make a motion, giving me authority to work with the city attorney and the police department on developing an MOU between the library.
I make that motion.
This is giving you authority, or you would like,
I guess it should be giving me authority in the legal
Presume that
thing,
she's done
but
that. That's presumed.
that's presumed, absolutely. Whether he wants it or not, he knows it. Okay, and would someone like to second that? That was Heather. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, the capital fund discussion in new business. Did everybody on the board have an opportunity to look at what Eric sent? That I sent to all of you. And do you have any questions? This is to create an unassigned, create an assigned fund that would be set up to keep track of the amount remaining in the capital projects budget for future capital projects. So we don't have that fact that things can take so long and move into the next year, and then how much was still left and where was it, and so it wouldn't leave the financial accounts the money is sitting, fiscal accounts the money is sitting in right now. It would just be a spreadsheet monitoring. Does that make sense?
And we are specifically.
We would put it in QuickBooks.
We are specifically talking, the assigned term seems to be a technical term, it's assigned and not committed.
It's assigned fund balance that is not committed to a particular project, but is specified to be capital projects.
And that's distinguishable from what we do now.
We don't have anything.
Okay, so, all right, so this is the dedicated capital fund that would fund the same way.
So
but
we would,
It's in a different box.
it's in a different box. So what he's suggesting here is, like, currently there's $556,508.01 right now that's left over from the capital projects, which is being used obviously for the elevator, just that the project hasn't happened yet. So that immediately would go into this QuickBook ledger as an assigned fund balance within capital projects. It just keeps it cleaner over time, so people know how much was left over, what's coming in, yeah.
Yeah, so I was wondering if there was a statement in the attachment that said that it was easier to move assigned funds than it was to move committed funds. So committed funds are already committed to a specific project, whereas assigned funds seem to be assigned to a larger, just a general operating area.
I think that in this case, what was put in the budget for capital projects was not necessarily exclusively the elevator. So if the elevator was delayed by a few months and this other thing that was also going to be approved was a capital project, you know, it's not dictating that money can only be for the elevator. They both sit within capital projects. That's
Yeah.
my understanding.
And so I guess I was just wondering, you know, we're the ones that pick what funds gets assigned to our, that's what the government allocated to us for that purpose. And how easy is it us for to move it out of that again, or not? Like, once it's in there, is it there forever?
Well, that's a question for Eric.
I think my understanding is once it's dedicated as a capital fund, it's got to be.
So once it's in an assigned
And
thing,
yes, I find you can't move it
it
back.
will never go out and cover like payroll or something like that.
That's my understanding.
All right, and then I was wondering, like, how does that affect our counting of the money? Like, is it just sort of still standing there as a balance in our overall budget?
That's what I don't understand. I mean, because it would be assigned but segregated from the operating is what I.
Right, so then we report on it still annually because it's there. I just don't understand how it affects our statements, you know, to have it.
And what the public will perceive.
I mean, so it's there, but it's not, it will show up, I said.
I think it would, I think there would, my understanding, you may know this better than me, is that there would be a category that's indicating that it's there, it's not a part of our, we're not, we have a capital, we still would have a capital project line in our budget. It's saying that the reserve of what wasn't, right now, we have an issue that we have this, we haven't used it.
Right.
Well, we're at the end of our fiscal year. Now then it gets really confusing when we've approved what we've approved for the capital project for next year.
Right.
What, and then we're looking at how that money is changing over time, but where this money go, right?
Right, so the city uses this mechanism also, and we have a bunch of different ways that we use it, but really all it is, it just says, this stays in this pot and it goes from year to year. And so our operating budget comes and goes and we spend it and the money's gone and we start fresh on July 1st. This money won't do that, it just gets notated
It
separate.
accrues, it would actually accrue as expense.
If you left it there and
If you
you
don't
just.
spend it.
And then, like I described, it gets spent for only what the assigned purpose is. So you couldn't take it and collection or something, or fines and.
Which we really can't do with it anyway.
Right.
Because even when we reallocate funds, Ike always chooses things that are in similar categories. I don't think that we could all of a sudden take this whole huge amount of money if we didn't have the elevator happening, capital projects, and say, oh, well, we're sending the staff to Hawaii or something. Right? I mean, you can't just randomly kind of not pretend that the lines exist as.
What we have done is reallocated from that line of our operating budget into something like equipment purchases. When we had to buy a new piece of HVAC equipment that reached the level that it would need to be capitalized according to.
And it may be that we would potentially know the same thing, that this, you had enough warning to make some plans ahead. So really, and it is something, as I said in my note to all of you, that we can approve in July. We don't need to approve right now because it is accounting for the fact that June hasn't happened yet. When we have our July meeting, we approve all of the finances through June, which is the end of our fiscal year. So then we would know exactly how much is left over.
Right.
But what I wanted to just get was a sense of the questions so that Eric could respond to any of those. So does you feel like yours has now been answered from Mike, or do you want me to ask Eric specifically if it's dedicated in this way, can it be moved out? Because I think I agree, and what Heather's saying is that it can't be, right?
Well, are we making it, if we're making it a reserve, not capital reserve, then it's a reserve, which. And then I'd have to go back and read the language that Eric said for the accounting standards, but yeah, you can't really move stuff out of the reserve. Right there, and then you use it for what you're supposed to.
But it was also to not specifically shift the money out of the bank account.
Right.
And have a whole separate bank account and it allows it to stay there so that it's earning whatever supportive interest it is. Okay, so is there any questions then, or? Okay, so then we will just, that will be on our agenda for July.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else? Otherwise, I would like to adjourn our meeting for today. And the board is going to go into a retreat.